Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. Today we are going to talk about how we are starting to use our chamber vacuum sealer. It is an Innova. It is top rated and we have learned quite a bit about it. I'm going to share with you some of the things that we can use it for that we cannot use our Weston for. Some of the procedures using dry foods, you can use both. And so we're going to start with one of those, and that is, I have here a quart jar of, I think it's like 15 bean soup mix. And supposing that, now I usually keep, as you can see, in quart jars, and then I vacuum seal using the attachment on our Weston. But since I have this out, and I could do this in the Weston, what I'm going to show you, I could do it in the Weston, I would need to use a different bag. This bag is smooth. It does not have the embossing that allows the air to escape when you do an edge sealer. So supposing that Jim and I were going to have soup for one meal. Now, we already know that 1 cup of beans fully cooked is exactly the right amount of, so that we have no leftovers. And so I might not want to take the glass jar that breaks and then bring home leftovers. So I'm just going to put 1 cup of beans in here, this bean mixture. So that's about a cup. And then I'm going to seal it in this little pouch, and we can take this up to the cabin with us. It will travel great over the dirt roads, no worries about breakage, and then I will just open the vacuum pack when I'm ready to fix it up at the cabin. So here's what we do with just regular dry food sealing. We open it up. I just pulled up the clamp, and I'm placing the bag under the clamp, pushing the clamp down, and now the bag is nicely arranged across the top of the heating bar that will seal it. And so the first thing that's going to happen is, out of this port right here, the motor is going to suck all of the air out of both the chamber and the bag. And so it's a total vacuum in here, inside and outside the bag. And then when all the vacuuming is done, then it will revert to sealing across here, so it's going to seal, and the bag will still be a little bit puffy. But then, after it is sealed, this now allows the regular atmospheric pressure to come back in, and it will, the force of that atmospheric air will force the bag tightly around, so it will be, it will look just like it does in the Weston. So here we're closing. So I'm just going to do regular. And it is normal and normal. Normal vacuum, normal seal, and go. Bag is puffing a little bit. Now it's counting down to where it is going to let the atmospheric pressure back in. When it gets to 2, you'll hear a whoosh. And then there it is. And so, raising the clamp, and here we have a lovely bag of prepackaged beans, just the right amount for meal for us at the cabin. And it is very hard. The air is completely out of this. It's a wonderful vacuum. My Weston, as wonderful as it is, does not achieve a vacuum this complete. All right, now, we also have other things that this can do that have nothing to do with sealing anything, but rather using that vacuum chamber for doing some kind of fancy things with foods. So the first thing that we're going to do is called an infusion or an extraction. And this is where you can make your own vanilla extract if you have vanilla beans, whole vanilla beans, and vodka. Or we are going to make some chili garlic oil. And what happens with the infusion and extraction, so this is from the Innova website. This is vacuum sealing, chamber vacuum sealing 101. It's a little science class in how things work. And they say, when the chamber vacuum pump removes air from the chamber, the pressure will also pop the pockets of air and water inside the ingredients and the liquid base. When the vacuum is released and the pressure is allowed to equalize, all the flavor molecules of the ingredient being extracted. So that would be, in the case of vanilla, from the vanilla bean, all of those flavor molecules rush out of the bean and they are infused into the vodka, thus making vanilla. So the same thing happens here. What I have in this dish is 1 jalapeno and 4 garlics. Now this is a little recipe from one of the recipes in our free downloadable Wonderful Marvelous Beans. It is the celery chickpea soup, calls for chili oil. And they have you dice these very fine and then heat them in oil. And that's how they get the infusion to occur. But since we have a chamber vacuum, we don't need to dice them and we don't need to heat them at all. So I am going to measure out this olive oil, 1/4 cup. And I've learned some things about this sealer, this machine, that you do not want to have your dish more than half full, and you don't want it to be hot. But we want all of our ingredients submerged so that those flavor molecules can come out of the solids, the chili, the jalapeno, and the garlic, and move into the olive oil. So we're going to place it in here. So we are going from this menu to infuse, extract, and that's already selected. And then we're going to hit go. The olive oil is bubbling a little bit. It's pushing air pockets out from both the olive oil, if there are any, and especially from the garlic and the pepper. So it took a little rest, waiting for things to calm down a bit. Back and forth and back and forth. Okay, let's see what we've got. The garlic is good, the peppers aren't quite there. So I'm probably going to run this 2 or maybe 3 more times, and then we'll be back. All right, I've just finished the 3rd processing. I smashed the garlic, so it is extracting great. There's plenty of garlic taste there. I'm now going to run it a 4th time with just the peppers. So here's the finished product, and I'm going to remove the chilies, and I'm just going to strain it into this little jar. I do not want any vegetable parts going into the oil. Now we have the flavonoids from the chili and the garlic in this oil. It tastes fantastic. It's going to be wonderful just to be able to get into the refrigerator and use this for the soup when we make it, because it's a quick and easy soup to make otherwise. Okay, next up, pickles. I'm going to clear the deck. We'll be back. So this next action is called compression, and it essentially will look exactly the same, but what is happening to the food is this. We're going to be making pickles using these little slices of English cucumber. So when the vacuum goes on, it is going to compress, it's going to pull out the air, and obviously a sponge has lots of air pockets. When it pulls that air out, it is going to compress. And once that food is compressed, once the atmospheric pressure comes back into the chamber, then now we'll draw in the liquid. Just like a sponge, if you put a dry sponge in water, it soaks in that water. It's going to soak in the brine as well. Now, compression is really great for doing pickles. I have done pickled beets. They turned out fantastic. You can use whatever your favorite brine is for doing pickled beets. I just used a can of sliced beets. It's better to use sliced so that the thickness is the same and uniform throughout, and they turned out fantastic. I almost ate the whole can myself. Today we're going to do the same thing with pickles. I'm using the Anova recipe for this, and I will put the link below. But it basically is, this is water and white vinegar with some sugar and salt. I have some dill fronds in here. Here's a clove of garlic that I have mashed. I have some peppercorns. Here is half of a star anise. Now this is star anise, just in case you haven't ever worked with it before. It's quite interesting. You open up the lid and it smells just exactly like licorice. So we're using only just half of one for our pickles today. So a couple of things that I have learned is you don't need to heat anything. You will use warm water out of the tap to make this. So I'm going to put the pickles in, or the slices of cucumber in, and I'm kind of putting them in as evenly as possible. And then for the brine, you want to cover the cucumbers, but you don't want to go more than halfway full. And the first time I did pickled beets, we had a mess because I had filled it almost all the way full and the brine was hot. And it just bubbled up and covered the inside, the underside of the glass lid. It made a real mess. So I know better now. I did beets differently after that and did not do as big a batch. So here we go. Now over here, I'm going to move one down to compress and pickle. And we'll do the same thing. Now it's going to take about 3 times. So we'll watch it go through the first one, then we'll do the other 2 off camera, then we'll come back. You can probably see the liquid boiling, bubbling. It's pulling air out. Those are air bubbles that it's pulling out from the cucumbers. Okay, now I don't know if you noticed, but as the air went back in, all of a sudden you see that they became a different shade of green. And you could see the air just go, you could see the liquid just go right in. It was just sucked right in. And we will do now the second and third batches and then come back. Okay, so here we have it, and you can see how saturated these look. They're now translucent. You can see the difference between this one has not been processed, this one has been, and that brine got into these. Now I'm going to taste this and see. Oh, they're wonderful. Very dill. Very, very good. Very tangy, very lovely, very crunchy, just like fresh cucumbers. I really like that about these pickles. So if you're running short of dill pickles and you have 10 minutes, you can whip this up. The syrup, I imagine the syrup you could use again, but I still have half of it left right here that I can save for doing another batch. And these will keep in the refrigerator in a jar for up to a month. So they're fun little pickles and very quick to make. Next up is one that I was really, really interested in, and that is the cool dry process on this. Professional bakers these days, well, and for a while, have had great big vacuum chambers in their bakeries, as big as a refrigerator, maybe half a refrigerator. And so when they have these big rolling carts of buns that have just come out of the oven, they will roll them right into the vacuum chamber. And then they will turn the vacuum on, and that vacuum runs for 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And what happens is that it sucks all the steam out of the buns and keeps the top crust just as crusty and nice as possible. Because those of us who are home bakers know that as we take our bread out of the oven, it quite often has a wonderful crunchy crust. And then as it sits there, the steam from the inside softens that top crust as it cools. And then we no longer have our nice crunchy crust. But putting buns in the vacuum sealer like this, but not the sealing, we don't use the sealer part. We just use the vacuum. And so yesterday I was baking a batch of French bread rolls for sandwiches, and I decided that we would go ahead and try the cool dry cycle on this Anova chamber vacuum sealer. And you will see that I struggled with it just a little bit. I finally figured some things out. I was doing some troubleshooting because it was the first time I had used it for doing that type of thing. And so I have the clip. We'll show that clip now, and when it's done, we'll come back and debrief just a little bit. All right, these just came out of the oven. So they're hot. It has a really nice crust. We want to maintain that crust. So I'm going to put a couple at a time in here, and we're going to cool them. Now, I've not ever done this before, so we will see how it works. It is on dry/cool. So here we go. Oh, we got it all steamed up in there. So it's creating the vacuum. And this acts just like an evaporative cooler. Error 1. I don't know what this means. I checked E1, error 1 for this, and what it means is that it's not able to pull a vacuum, and to check the seal and the gasket, which I have done. Most likely it was because there was too much steam. So these have cooled just a little bit more. Let's try it again and see if we can get beyond 45 seconds. Whoa, bridged it.
Let them cool a little while.
So what is happening is it is pushing a little bit of the pressure back in so that the vacuum doesn't pull too hard. So it's giving spurts of atmospheric pressure back in the chamber. That makes much more sense.
Yeah.
So atmospheric pressure is all the way back in. We can open these up. Crust is still nice and crispy. These are still too hot. So these are nice and cool. These are still a little bit warm. Crust is okay here. And the crust is already softening here. So the steam from within softens the crust. If we can get some of that steam out, even doing it just in 15-second intervals before the error comes on, then it's just fine. And it looks to me like every 15 seconds it triggers more atmospheric pressure to come in, so as the vacuum isn't too much on the buns. So I'm liking this. I think it'll work. It won't fit a full loaf of bread, but on these little buns it works just perfectly. And I'm very pleased to have the nice crispy crust. So following up on the French bread buns that we did yesterday, that little clip that you just saw, I did some more experimenting off camera, and I learned a few things. I did some troubleshooting, and what I found out was that I was putting 2 buns in. If I would have put 1 bun in, it probably would have worked better, but with the 2 buns, it was producing too much steam. It was extracting that steam, and the steam was getting in the seal so that the vacuum could not form. And every 15 seconds through the 2-minute cycle, there is a psh for just a couple of seconds. It is to let atmospheric pressure back in. So I noticed that it vacuums And then when it stops the vacuum and starts putting the air back in, then that is the cooling cycle. So it went from vacuum 15 seconds, cool 2 seconds, vacuum seal, and then cool. And so because it did the error on the first 15 seconds for the first several times that I did it, I was getting a little panicky until I went back and read what that error means. I recooled the other buns that kept tripping the error sign, and they worked out just fine. And our control to have soft crust and the other 4 had very nice crispy crust, and we had 2 of them for turkey sandwiches for dinner last night, and it worked great. So now we're going to do a word about marinating meat. And I was thrilled to be thinking about the possibility of being able to quick marinate our chicken breasts. We use Italian salad dressing as a marinade for chicken breasts, and oh, it is so, so good. But I wanted to remind you that it is so very easy to vacuum seal liquids. So this is some of our Italian chicken pastina soup that we vacuum sealed in here, and then it is frozen. So it is out in our freezer, but it has an application here because a marinade that we do with meats is also liquid, and we're going to be doing that right here. But what about marinating meat? We just compressed some vegetables and had the liquid run into those vegetables. And so we know that vegetables and also fruits are porous enough that when they are compressed, you can use them for infusions, extractions, or for compressions. But compression is what you would be using if you could marinate meat. And I say if you could, because despite what you see all over the internet, and even from manufacturers, meats don't compress. They're too solid. And here is what Anova says about about marinades. It's worth noting that a chamber vacuum sealer is very useful for the storage of meat in liquid marinades, ensuring that there's even distribution and no leaking with an airtight seal. It does not speed up the marination process. The structure inside of meat and other proteins is not fragile enough to collapse under the vacuum pressure. And so even though there may be some little pockets in the meat of perhaps water or perhaps air, the vacuum seal, vacuum motor is not strong enough to compress those so that, like a sponge, so that when the atmospheric pressure returns, the liquid rushes in. I doubted that because I had seen so many machines that have a marinade function on them. This Anova does not. Rather, it does the compression and the infuse extract, dealing with fruits and vegetables mostly, but not with meats. So I started doing some scientific research, and as it turns out, Anova, in this little bulletin that I read on Chamber Vacuum Sealers 101, the science, they are correct. Meat does not compress. A lot of people still think that it does, and you will see videos saying, I put this in and I'm going to do an instant marinade on it, and then it will be ready right after the marinade is done. And so you see it in a vacuum sealer. The one I watched, I couldn't tell that the liquid even moved like I could see with the cucumber. The liquid just forced its way right in the cucumber, and I could actually see that. So when we marinate meat, the marinade itself contains acid. And so the meat soaks in that acidified liquid, barbecue sauce or whatever it is that we're using today. I'm going to do chicken, but I'm not expecting it to be an instant marinade, even though I'm going to vacuum seal it, because we now know that meat just doesn't compress. And so it doesn't let the liquid in easily. So soaking it for a day or so or whatever we need to, the way we've always done it, is still the best way. And you know, if it makes you feel better to try to do it, then go ahead and do it. Try it. And you can test by the flavor of meat and see how it works for you. So what we're going to do today is I have a couple of chicken breasts that I brought in from our level 1 food storage, and I'm just going to slip them in this vacuum pouch. And we love to marinate with Italian salad dressing. So I'm just going to put enough in on the front side and on the back side. And there is a little freezer burn on these because they're about a year and a half in our freezer and it's overdue to use them. And they weren't stored the way they should have been stored. So from now on, when we bring these chicken breasts home in bulk like this, we're going to be repackaging them in, I'm not sure we'll do it in the marinade, but we're going to be repackaging them in the freezer bags so that freezer burn is no longer a situation going on in our freezer. So now what I'm going to do is take this over and put it in the vacuum sealer. So I want this bag to be as straight as possible. Lifting the clamp, lowering the clamp. Okay, that looks good. And we are just going to do a regular vacuum seal. All right, so this is what it looks like. So this is going to work very, very well. I'm going to turn the bag halfway over so that now there's marinade on the top, on both sides, and I'm not going to have to go into the refrigerator and flip it over and flip it over. And so we will be having these chicken breasts for either dinner later today or perhaps tomorrow. So it is, even though I now believe that you really cannot do a marinade super fast and cut the time way in half like you can with making pickles and pickling beets and doing other things with it. This is a great way to package it while it is marinating in the refrigerator. So I'm going to be doing this from now on. So I'm hoping that this has given you some idea about the versatility of a chamber vacuum sealer. We are absolutely loving ours, and I'm so grateful that we didn't have to pay an arm and a leg for it. And it's under $300, so we love ours. It's a great addition to our food preservation equipment. We are now much more versatile. It was like when we added our freeze dryer after 5 years of saving up for it, after I had been doing only dehydrating for 20 years. So it's that kind of a leap, and I love those leaps so long as they don't, you know, put us in the poorhouse for the piece of equipment. So those of you that have a chamber vacuum now have some ideas about other things that you can do, and those of you that do not can be making a choice about whether or not you want to add that piece of equipment. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we appreciate you so very much. We just love our community, and we will be back with you very soon for more videos.